Poetry from the Tang Dynasty is the most well-known and admired of all in Chinese history. Historians and poets alike acclaim these works of literature. Great achievements were made by thousands of poets during this era that used many different styles and ideas. Many of these poems can still be heard in China, showering beauty and thoughtfulness on its people. The Tang Dynasty was a time where prosperity and happiness lavished the Chinese people. This dynasty lasted from 618 to 907 CE and produced some of the most amazing poets the world has ever known, such as Li Bei and Du Fu. There are more than 2,300 poets from the Tang Dynasty, with 50,000 very different poems still passed down. The poets came from very different backgrounds and social standings. Some were generals, concubines, maids, tradesmen, performers, Buddhists, Taoists, and the emperor. Each person had a different reason to use poetry. The poems were found in many aspects of daily life during the Tang Dynasty, such as storytelling, allegories, travel notes, letters, and memorials. The ancient Chinese loved poetry, with it reaching a pinnacle during the Tang Dynasty. Poets from the Tang Dynasty used many styles of poetry from the past and expanded on them. During the Tang, the ancient Chinese expanded on two forms of poetry, shi and ci. Nowadays, shi can be classified as all Chinese poetry. However, shi used to be categorized as every type of poetry not found in the ci and fu. Within the shi, there are many smaller classes, such as the Lu Shi, Juju, and Gu Shi. Lu Shi is a very structured form of shi that was greatly expanded on in the Tang Dynasty. Each poem has 8 lines with 7 or 5 syllables, with meticulous tonal patterns. Du Fu, one of the most famous Tang poets, is greatly associated with Lu Shi. From Lu Shi, Juju was created. Juju consists of quatrains with 5 or 7 syllables each. Du Fu also utilized this type of poetry along with Li Bei. Finally, Li Bei was known to write some Gu Shi poetry. Gu Shi, unlike Juju and Lu Shi, is not structured. Other than line length and rhyme, a poet could write however they wanted to. Finally, ci was developed further in the Tang Dynasty. Ci was a type of lyrical poetry that uses a poetic meter. This meter is centered on a fixed rhythm. Most of the time, poets expressed feelings of desire through ci. Tang poets changed Chinese poetry for all time. Li Bei, one of the most famous Chinese poets, utilized many of these styles of poetry. He lived from 701 to 762 CE and was born in Central Asia. At age 25, Li Bei began to travel China, meeting many scholars and eventually making a name for himself. Then, the emperor appointed Li Bei as a member of Yulin, which was a group of poets for the emperor. In 755 CE, he joined the rebel armies to aid Prince Lin, who was trying to ascend the throne. The rebellion failed, and Li Bei was sentenced to die for helping. However, he was later pardoned. In 762, Li Bei died of either illness due to excessive drinking or drowning when in a drunken state while he tried to scoop the moon out of a river. One poem by Li Bei is called Waking from Drunkenness on a Spring Day. Li Bei shows amazing imagery in many of his works, including this one. In the translation, much of the rhymes and poetic meters are lost. However, the ideas remain the same. Life in the world is but a big dream. I will not spoil it by any labor or care. So saying, I was drunk all day, lying helpless at the porch in front of my door. When I woke up, I blinked at the garden lawn. A lonely bird was singing amid the flowers. I asked myself, had the day been wet or fine? The spring wind was telling the mango bird. Moved by its song, I soon began to sigh. and as wine was there I filled my own cup. Wildly singing, I waited for the moon to rise. When my song was over, all my senses had gone. The other very popular Tang poet is Du Fu. He was born in 712 CE in northern China. In his adolescence, Du Fu traveled much of China and eventually met Li Bei in the year 744 CE. The two became lifelong friends. In 746 CE, Du Fu went to the capital to gain an official position, but ultimately he was only given a minor position at court. During the Anlushan rebellion in 755 CE, Du Fu was captured, but eventually escaped. When he went back to the royal courts, he was given a higher position with the emperor. However, some of his advice offended the emperor, so he banished Du Fu to a smaller post out on the border. In 759 CE, he gave up his post and started to travel again. One of Du Fu's most productive times for his poetry was 759 to 768 CE. However, in 770 CE, Du Fu died of sickness on a boat. Du Fu wrote many different poems. One of his poems is called Moonlit Night. It shows great descriptions as well as metaphors. Tonight my wife must watch alone the full moon over Fuzhou. I think sadly of my sons and daughters far away, too young to understand this separation, or remember our life in Shangan. In fragrant mist her flowing hair is damp, in clear moonlight her jade-white arms are cold. When will we lean at the open casement together, while the moonlight dries our shining tears? The works of poetry created during the Tang Dynasty are exceptional and changed the face of poetry by expanding on Shi and Si. Historians and poets alike will continue to praise the Chinese poetry from this dynasty for centuries to come. Li Bei and Du Fu will forever go down in history as the best Chinese poets the world has ever seen.